My brother sued me to prove my own deed was worthless paper. His lawsuit is the only reason I own 140 acres of creek bottom today. He was right about almost all of it. He was right that our father sold me land our father did not own. He was right that everybody laughed. My name is Delia. My brother is Cal. Our father was Walt. And in 2014, he signed a deed to me that 4 different people told me to frame as a joke. It was 140 acres of bottom land along the creek. Good hay ground. Flat, black, and wet at the north end every spring since anybody could remember. And in 2014, it did not belong to my father. It belonged to his mother. Our grandmother lived on that place 54 years, and she was very much alive. So a reasonable person would ask why I handed my father $18,000, which was every dollar I had at 34, for a piece of paper about land he could not sell. Because the man who drew that deed practiced law over a hardware store in a town of 900 people, and he did one thing that afternoon nobody noticed. He chose a form. What they sold. He chose one kind of deed instead of the kind every other lawyer in that county used, and he added 4 words to it. By the end of this, you will know what those 4 words did, and you will know why he never explained them to me or to my father or to anyone. But first, the part that made me stop fighting for 7 years, because I believed exactly what my brother believed. Our grandmother was named Vera. She raised our father in that house, and she told me twice that the bottom ground would come to me because I stayed. And I did stay. I ran the hay lease, I paid her taxes 6 years running, and I fixed the north fence 3 times because the creek kept taking it. But our grandmother would not sign anything. So, in the spring of 2014, my father decided to fix it himself, and he took me to that office over the hardware store. His idea was simple, and everybody I have told since has laughed at it. He would sell me the bottom ground now, for money, before he had it. The lawyer did not laugh. He asked my father 2 questions, and I only remember the second one because it seemed rude at the time. He asked how sure my father was. My father said he was sure, and the lawyer went to a shelf and came back with a different form than the one on his desk. So I paid the $18,000. It was recorded at the courthouse 4 days later, and for 2 years that deed was the family joke at every holiday table. My brother called it my certificate of nothing. He was 3 hours away in the city, and he was not wrong about the law as he understood it, because everybody knows you cannot sell what you do not own. That is not a technicality. It is the first thing anyone will tell you about land. Then in October of 2016, our grandmother died at 91, in the front room of that house, and the 140 acres passed to my father as her only child. And here is the thing that took me 9 years to learn. On the afternoon my grandmother died, those 140 acres stopped being my father's and became mine, not by a new deed. Nobody signed anything. Nobody was told. There was no meeting, no filing, no check, and no lawyer in the room. The rule is called after acquired title, and it is one of the oldest hard rules in property law. Lawyers also call it estoppel by deed. It says this: if a man promises in a deed that he owns land and takes your money for it, the law will not let him stand up later and say he did not. So the deed is not void. It is a deed waiting for its title. It sits there, dead on the record, for as long as it takes. And the moment that title reaches the man who promised it, the title does not stop with him. It passes straight through him, by operation of law, to you. That is what a warranty is. Not a promise to be sued if you are wrong. A promise that reaches forward and takes the thing the second it exists. But it only works if the deed carries covenants of warranty. That is the form the lawyer went to the shelf for. That is what the 4 words were. So on the day of our grandmother's funeral, I already owned 140 acres, and I stood in a field in a borrowed coach believing I owned nothing. And my father owned nothing either. He just did not know it yet, and for 2 years it did not matter, because for 2 years he did not want to. Then in March of 2018, my father and I stopped speaking, over something so small I will not embarrass either of us by putting it in this. And 5 weeks later he printed a deed form off the internet, signed it at a notary counter in a shipping store, and gave the bottom ground to my brother. It was a quitclaim deed. It cost him 12 and 20 minutes. Every signature on it is genuine. It was notarized correctly and recorded correctly. And it conveyed absolutely nothing, because a quitclaim does not promise you anything. It hands over whatever the signer happens to be holding. If he is holding a farm, you get a farm. If he is holding heir, you get heir, correctly signed, correctly witnessed, and correctly filed away forever. And my father had been holding heir since 2016. So my brother received exactly that, and then he farmed it, leased it, and banked it for 7 years. The hay checks went to him. The lease was renewed twice in his name. I know what those checks were worth because I negotiated that lease in 2011. Our father died in the spring of 2021. He and I had spoken twice in 3 years, both times about a truck and neither time about the land. I did not contest anything. I did not hire anyone. I told myself the truth as I understood it, which is that I had bought a piece of paper and lost. So for 4 years, I drove past that ground on the way to work, and I looked at it the way you look at a house you used to live in. And I would have gone on doing that for the rest of my life. My brother is the one who could not leave it alone. In February of 2025, a solar developer walked that bottom ground with a tape and offered my brother $610,000 for it, on an auction with a closing date. It was, by any measure, the best day of his adult life. He told our cousins. He told a man who leased the hay that the lease would end. And every land sale of that size runs through a title company, because no buyer of 140 acres pays without insurance on what he is buying. So a title examiner in a county seat 40 miles away pulled the chain on that ground and read it back, deed by deed, the way they are paid to. She found my 2014 deed sitting on the record 4 years ahead of my brother's for the same 140 acres from the same man. Most examiners would have called mine a cloud and asked me to sign it away for a few $1,000s. That is the ordinary way this ends. But she read what kind of deed mine was. And then she read what kind of deed his was. And she wrote one sentence to the underwriter. The seller has nothing to sell. The option did not close. It could not. And the developer's lawyers told my brother to go and get the cloud removed, which sounded routine. So in June of 2025, my brother filed a quiet title action against me. He asked a judge to declare my 2014 deed void and strike it off his title. That is how I found out. Not from a lawyer, not from the family, and not from my father. From a summons served on my porch by a man in a windbreaker. And a quiet title action does not ask whether my deed is good. It asks a court to decide who owns the ground. All of it. Once. For everybody. The lawyer I finally sat down with read my deed for 90 seconds, stopped, and read the covenant paragraph out loud to me twice. He asked me who drafted it. I told him a man over a hardware store who had been dead for 6 years. He said that man knew exactly what he was doing. My brother's case collapsed in a written ruling 5 months later. There was no dramatic morning in court and no moment where anybody looked at anybody. The judge wrote that title vested in me in October of 2016 by operation of law, and that the 2018 quitclaim conveyed no interest because there was none to convey. He also ordered my brother to account for 7 years of lease payments taken from ground he never owned. That number is still being argued. And then in January of this year, a woman I have never met sent me a package because she was emptying a storage unit that had been paid for since 2019. She was the daughter of the lawyer over the hardware store. She was winding up 41 years of his practice, and she was mailing files back to the names on them. Mine was 1 page thicker than it should have been. Not a document. A file jacket with handwriting on the front, in pencil, dated the day we signed. He had written down the second question my father asked him that afternoon, the one I remembered as rude. It was 6 words long. My father had asked him, and I am reading it exactly as it was written down, what happens if I change my mind? And underneath it, in the same pencil, the lawyer had written his answer. Not to my father, to the file. To whoever opened it after he was gone. Then nothing happens. Use the warranty form. He did not write it down for me. He wrote it down because he had just been asked, by a man giving land to his daughter, whether he could take it back. My brother thinks a stranger 40 miles away beat him. She did not. She only read the form. He did not protect me from my brother. He protected me from my father, and he did it 4 years before my father decided he needed to.